In order to liberate all sentient beings, let's give rise to the Supreme Bodhicitta. Well, today we'll continue with the Diamond Sutra teaching, and today the Diamond Sutra, the Prajnaparamita Sutra, and its oral transmission will give you the blessings. In fact, during the national holiday, during this period of time, that is the vacation time, holiday time for people who actually come to the Tibetan plateau to receive blessings or on pilgrimage tours, or some of the tourists who are simply of no religion or no belief at all. Hopefully this teaching will give rise to, or will maturize their good seed that they've planted before, and maybe plant a good seed in their mind. However, what I noticed is that majority of people came here not to listen to the Dharma, rather they came here to see the corpse at the charnel ground. I think majority of people who come to the pilgrimage tour, and the ones who have religion, who have faith, they usually come to monasteries to prostrate, to circumambulate, to chant mantras, and so on. But what I notice is that majority of people nowadays would choose to see the corpse at the charnel ground, but they wouldn't come and circumambulate the stupas and the mandalas and so on. And that is by comparison to the ones who see the corpse. Maybe they're contemplating upon impermanence. Maybe they are observing impermanence of others by looking at other people's corpse and so on. Maybe it would be helpful to their visualization of death. I have no idea the intention. But I think sometimes when you see other people experiencing impermanence, people feel curious. And maybe people feel quite curious about other people's corpse. Milarepa, in fact, said that what you feel is terror, that is death, that dawn on other people, in fact, would also dawn on yourself. The corpse that you feel very curious or feel very afraid, that also is your own body. That's the way that you should contemplate upon corpse. As religious people, I think if you were to care more about your next life and not this life, that means you are rather a good practitioner. And for people who care rather about this life and not the next life, I don't think that's a good practitioner. A lot of people who came here, they're agnostic, and there are people who came here with belief or without belief. There are people who are not present, but they're present online. In whichever way you are listening, since you are here, you're listening to this class, I think it's already quite rare. I myself, I am grateful to those of you who are attending this class, especially all of you are listening to this class that is the teaching on the Prajnaparamita, on the transcendent knowledge, transcendent wisdom. During the setting of Diamond Sutra, I think we should then see through our grasping towards the solid existence during our daily life as well as during our practice. I think this is quite the key, the core, that is see through the solid existence. Some people came to me and told me that I read your book twice, your book, The Cutter, twice already, and every time I read it, I feel so touched. When I read it, I feel like I really emerge into your thoughts. But when I finish reading, when I don't meditate in my post-meditation sessions, I feel that I am no longer in sync with this kind of teaching. Could you please give me blessings so that I could carry on this this kind of insights in my daily life in post-meditation sessions? I think it is very genuine reflection, but also I feel that you don't have to worry too much about that you have a different insights during meditative state and have a rather very mundane view of the life during your post-meditation sessions, because it really takes time and it is a step-by-step procedure and process you have to follow. So it's necessary to maintain this kind of practice, and you don't have to worry too much or rush too much. Another thing is that it is quite important to recognize that all phenomena are illusory. And how to recognize it is, first of all, you have to then have a deep understanding of impermanence. On one hand, the easier way of taking it is to observe the changes in your life. You can observe how your life changes all the way from your childhood till now. Your body, your habitual tendencies, your favorites, your family, your jobs, your relationship, your lifestyle, your religion, all of these kind of things, all of these factors, your personal factors, all have changes. And the group of people that you relate yourself with, such as your school, your community, and different kind of people, your colleagues, and all of those also change, isn't it? I think this kind of changes should be accepted, should be then accepted by the ones who are Buddhists. I think we should be able to accept this kind of changes. Sometimes it is the changes of the format of your teaching, for example. Maybe sometimes you're studying alone and you could change it to studying in groups. And sometimes you study in groups and you could also accept it when it comes to the time that you have to study alone. As a disciple of the Three Jewels, you have to know your disciple. You have to know your principle. You have to know your own path. You have to then keep your own path. And that's exactly what Ponzo Rinpoche said. In fact, in terms of this, I have great admiration of the Jewish people who then wandered around the world. They don't really have their own country until the very recent time, and they've been living in different countries, but they have their own path and they kept their own livelihood. I think this is quite admirable. And whenever time changes, whatever changes, as Buddhists, we should also have such kind of a spirit of keeping your own path and do not waver such kind of principle. As Buddhists, I think changes are rather easy to accept. Unlike how mundane people, they would feel rather quite jarring when they change a different job position, different career, or different boss. But everything changes. As it is said in the Diamond Sutra, all phenomena are illusory. And because they're illusory, therefore it is subjected to change. When the factors are all together, when all the causes are mature, then the results will mature. And when the causes do not, the fruition won't come to maturation either. So during the teaching of Diamond Sutra, I really hope that we can see through the phenomena, the illusory phenomena. It doesn't mean that you don't sleep, you don't walk, you don't eat, you don't go to work. It doesn't mean that at all. You should not go to the extremes. I see lots of people who mistaken on the extremes. They then give up the things that they shouldn't. They see through the things that they shouldn't, and they grasp onto the solidity even more. In such a way, I think that's really the wrong way, the wrong path of taking the teachings. And this time, during the teaching of the Diamond Sutra, which takes only 2 days, so I'm giving you the oral transmission and give you rather very short and brief explanation on some parts of it. But I hope this could be a cause to arouse your curiosity to read more into the Diamond Sutra. I think back in 2000 or 2001, at that time I gave the teaching of the Diamond Sutra, and at that time it was rather very special and very unique period of time where we would have classes at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. and sometimes 6 a.m. And that's how I finished teaching of the Diamond Sutra. It was rather quite explicit of the teaching of the Diamond Sutra. And later on, that class was then finished throughout the time. And that teaching was later on transcribed and published as a book. During the day, I was busy as normal. I had to then attend the meetings and so on. And I remembered I had to use the teachings taught through the Diamond Sutra to apply in my daily life so that I could cut through the difficult the obscurations as well as the afflictions and all kinds of things. Therefore, I gave the name of the cutter to my book on the commentary of the Diamond Sutra, just as Master Xuanzang's translation. The title is also the cutter. I didn't really read the book again after a long period of time, but I received some feedback from some of the scholars who told me that the way that I taught the Diamond Sutra was rather very easy to understand, and it was very unique from easy to understand. It's easy to understand and from a different perspective compared to many other teachings and commentaries. So he really liked my book. Also, there was another commentary I would like to bring to your attention. That is the verses written by Sangha, and then the commentary composed by Vasubandhu based on Sangha's verses. Other than the Tibetan version of such commentary, other great masters from China mainland also made great commentaries, such as Master Kuiji and so on. Especially, I think Master Kuiji, who is rather very explicit in terms of the explanation. And he gives some special and different perspective than Master Xuanzang's translation or Master Xuanzang's commentary. Majority of the great commentaries are from the ancient times, especially, I think, the great masters such as Sangha, who directly explained the teachings from the Buddha, and it was quite precious. I think the sutras, as well as the commentary on the sutras, are quite precious. Once you receive it, once you have the opportunity to read it, you should then read it and receive it with a very with this cherishing mind. Nowadays, young people really likes online shopping, and they would even borrow loans so that they would continue to buy, and they feel this sense of cherishing for the objects that they buy. But compared to this kind of objects, this kind of materialistic things, I think the teachings, the commentaries, and the sutras and those kind of books are much more precious than those materialistic stuff. I think when it comes to the studying of the sutras and shastras, we should have this kind of very detail-oriented attitude in terms of studying those. We should study vastly, including different kinds of commentaries and different perspectives, so that we'll be able to understand it more in depth. I know that we have only a short period of time to study this, but I would encourage you to read more into the commentaries which were composed by the great masters who had wonderful wisdom. That would be very meaningful and valuable. In terms of the schedule for next week, in fact, I think it will be the same. On Sunday, this Sunday, we will have a Vajrayana class that is then restricted, only open to the participants who have met all the prerequisites. And Monday and Tuesdays are the Shrangama Sutra, and then the Uttara Tantra Shastra. Uttara Tantra Shastra on the Saturday.
yang li keng long go shima ne yong so tong te nam zhang de ta ver ka ra xia chak chung bom chak tam li yong so tong la ve keng ge chu ji nam zhang de de tu ne mar pong na de ni de je de le so nam chi zhang mang de zhang me de hu de me pa jie na geng ge yi ge zhi ne len ba dang zhen ba dang qiang wa dang lu ba dang shang qi bu xie ba dang zhen de la jia qi ri rab de dong bu xie na star zhi mu.
In the Diamond Sutra, it often talk about during the explanation, the chanting, the reading, and writing, and understanding, as well as teaching the Diamond Sutra. The merit comes from it would be quite wonderful. In the past, many people would write and transcribe the Diamond Sutra to practice calligraphy. In fact, this is really wonderful. If you don't have great calligraphy skills, and if you write really rather quite ugly, then it is best to just print it. You can choose different kinds of fonts and then print it. I think the merit is also quite great. In fact, the merit of printing the sutras is also quite wonderful and great. Of course, if you don't believe the language, believe in the language, the power of the language of the Dharma, then I have nothing to say. But in fact, if you were to believe it, I think that the merits are quite immeasurable. Before before you attain the enlightenment of or realize completely of emptiness, you should not give up all the meritorious actions. If you were to do it, it only shows that you don't understand what Dharma is. So it is quite important to practice the meritorious actions. Therefore, for those of you who want to make aspiration, at least I really hope that you can make such aspiration. I'm not going to force you or ask you to raise your hand or so. But what I'm going to ask you is, at least you should read and chant the Diamond Sutra once per year at least. Such as there are people who told me that this is my second time of reading the Diamond Sutra. There were Zen masters who would chant the Diamond Sutra for 100 times a day. But at least I think if we cannot do that, you can chant it once per year, isn't it? And I think that's the least requirement. Especially the Chinese version is really easy. It's very short. You can finish it in half an hour. If you cannot read it every day, then at least you can read it once a year. I know some practitioners who chant it every day and without interruption. Doesn't matter how tired, how busy they are, then they continuously to practice this. There are people who make aspiration, they would then keep their vows, and some people who don't at all. So let's see what kind of person you are.
yang takbar jigba semchen namji ton da takba par de chen bala yang takbar jigba semchen namji ton ji shere de jang shebe son so gang da chu ji nam zhang de len ba dang zhen ba dang qiang wa dang huo ba dang xiang qi ber xie ba dang zhen da la de che yang takbar ton ba de dang ne de jang shebe im kin de jang shebe zi de semchen tam chi ne sunum ji pong bo ho de me par dang dam bren ji re sunum ji pong bo sam ji me che ba dang tsongba me pa dang, zherde me pa dang, tsab me pa dang, dambrin girde, semchen de dag tamchi de ngi shang chim chakba la tokbar gyuru. Ta zhili,
Here it says that carrying on the work of the Tathagata in bringing beings to unsurpassed complete enlightenment. And over here, carrying on the work of the Tathagata, carrying on such kind of work to bring all the beings to unsurpassed complete enlightenment. It means to carry on the work of the Tathagata. There was a Zen master whose name is Master Zhongfeng, and when he read to this stanza, at that time, when he read this, he attained enlightenment. In fact, if you have the auspicious connection with this sutra, and once you chant it, read it, maybe some verses, some word could contribute to your enlightenment, could be the cause of your enlightenment. I think mundane people, once they read it, they would just feel that, oh, it's just to bring to unsurpassed complete enlightenment. What's so special about it? But based on your own faith and belief and deep trust, in fact, it has the possibility to bring you to enlightenment. You never know. So you should be careful when you read it. It may bring you enlightenment. Maybe you don't even know it. Maybe you don't know that you are enlightened. It's possible. Because in this sutra, every word and every stanza has such pith instruction and power to bring you such kind of enlightenment. by reading the collection of the stories of people's enlightenment based on reading and chanting Diamond Sutra, you can see that different people got enlightened based on different kinds of verses. It's such a simple verse, it's such a simple sentence. What's so special about it? So carrying on the work of Tathagata in brain beings to unsurpassed complete enlightenment, what's so special about it? What's the reason? It means that the beings of the lower capacity, in fact, they don't have such opportunity to meet this kind of Dharma that is so profound. I know there are people who are here because they are traveling and they're tourists, and they're just here by chance, they feel at least. In fact, this kind of chances, you may feel that it's only by chance, but it is rather because you've made auspicious connection to the Dharma previously. That's why you're here. Over here it says that there are people who have very deep evil karma. They won't have such a cause to listen. Also, wherever there are the texts of the Diamond Sutra, at that place, all the sentient beings, all the humans and celestial beings, they should then prostrate and pay reverence to that place. So if you were to place the Diamond Sutra in your room, at your home, then your home has become the stupa, and then whomsoever is there, they will make auspicious connection. There are people who purposely place the textbooks or the Buddha statue at the door, at the gate, so that people would, other people whomsoever come here would make great auspicious connections. Although it may seem like the Buddha is only watching over people's shoes. There are people who would place the Diamond Sutra on the car, and I think placing the Diamond Sutra in the car would be really wonderful. In the indirect way, it makes people to make a connection to it. So over here it says that you should know that this is then the pagoda or the stupa. Wherever the Diamond Sutra is there, then you should pay homage or circumambulate or scatter flowers and incense around it. And this one's also important. It says that by chanting, reading, and practicing the Diamond Sutra, you may then encounter some obstacles and hardship. And why? Why is that? Why does practicing and reading the Diamond Sutra would bring you some hardship? In fact, it is then eradicating the bad karma that is really severe. But by experiencing it previously in this life in a rather much lighter way. So there are people who have illness or some obstacles and have difficulties with interpersonal relationships and so on, sometimes it is because of your own way of relating to your life. But sometimes it is because that you are experiencing the evil karma that would mature in your next life, which would be quite severe in terms of its fruition, in terms of its result. But now you're experiencing it in this lifetime, right now, however, in a much, much lighter way than you should have received. The previous evil karma that you carried out, which could cause people to be reborn in evil destinations in the three lower realms. But by now, by enduring this disparagement of others, this previous bad karma is eradicated and will eventually attain unsurpassed complete enlightenment. Khenpo Lasher, who is 90 years old now. In fact, he often quotes this from the Diamond Sutra. What he often say is that, well, now I know that I am not really having great health, but at least I am then having this kind of fruition of illness, but it would eradicate much worse fruition of my evil karma from previous times. And upon hearing what he often say, and upon hearing how he often thinks, I think I also familiarize myself with this kind of thinking as well. Whenever I myself experiencing some hardship, I don't really think of this way, that how terrible, why me? Even doctors would say that, why you have these three kinds of illness altogether? This is such suffering to you, isn't it? But I myself never really felt that it was my bad luck or my bad fortune or anything. I often felt that it was a way to eradicate my evil karmas. It is also taught in the way of the Bodhisattva about how to contemplate on the enduring difficult times. There are people who practice goods but don't receive good results, and there are people who practice good and receive good results, and there are people who then practice bad karma and bad actions and receive bad results right away, and don't receive bad results right away. But I think what's the most important is, if you were to practicing in such a way, it would break your self-grasping. And this is really the most important way of practicing it, such as it is stated in the way of the Bodhisattva. It says that countless ages, O my mind, do you spend desiring to attain your aims, and what a great weariness it was, while your reward was only misery. And if you were to contemplate on the misery, the root of the misery is in fact grasping towards yourself. And the more you grasp, the more the more misery will occur, because you have more self-grasping. And if you eradicate such kind of self-grasping, then whatever occurs, you won't view them as suffering, as obstacles, as difficulties anymore. So when we are studying the Diamond Sutra, I think this is quite important to remember. The karma and its fruition can be overturned or changed. And the most important way of working with it is to break your self-grasping. For example, when there's some certain fruition that you will experience in this lifetime, by practicing and by upholding the Diamond Sutra, it could change. And the karma, such as the evil deeds that you ask other people to practice for you, and the evil deeds that you practice yourself willingly, and the evil deeds that you practice without knowing them. And this kind of evil karmas could be confessed through practicing the Diamond Sutra. And what cannot be purified is that the ones you practice voluntarily, even when you know that they are evil karmas, and the kind of karma you create because you have wrong views influenced by heretics. But when you're practicing the Diamond Sutra, this kind of certain results, a certain kind of negative karma that you will definitely experience can be also overturned or changed or lightened by practicing the Diamond Sutra, such as stated by Master Huiji's commentary on the Vajrakata Sutra. It says that in the Nirvana Sutra it is stated, one who does not encounter the Dharma karma to be experienced by this person is determined. One who encounters the Dharma karma to be experienced by this person is undetermined. So the determined karma, there are people who then may have this determined karma to experience. But if this person encounters the Dharma, then you have different methods to work with such kind of evil deeds, evil destinations, such as confession by practicing Vajrasattva, or practice the confession liturgy, or practice confession by upholding the Diamond Sutra, and so on. And in such a way, the karma could be overturned or could be changed, and in such a way it could be undetermined. There are people who probably don't really invest lots of time or diligence into studying the Dharma, but at least you have the methods now. At least you've encountered the Dharma. In some ways, you practice some confession, you practice some good deeds or good karmas, and later on maybe you don't have to fall into the three lower realms. If you don't have special cases, I advise you to stay and finish the class. I think maximum I'll have 20 or 30 minutes.
Ramjur ngumber shide ndpt karwa changme bi yang chi changme bana devjang shaba jab jomba yang do bor zobo sangji mar memza ji ngar yang chi ngaro na sangji shwa chak chuk bam chak ja chir sa je ta shongwa ngimni ber shide mamni bar 마시 베 특용어로 양 마시 데 람저로 상집 정든 데 대덕이 니버 제네 특용어로 마시 바강 임바 심디 ngaja thamara jerwanam durden de lembadom jwadom jambada 창화당 로바당 근데 저 집바강 임바 람저로 수능지 봉본들 라요 수능지 봉보 ngami 게 처리양 예버는 먼저 동거 처리양 범지 처리 장당 차당 장화당 회당 다당 jerjer와요 모조도 람저까테 디제나 리기워 뭐 근거 손음기 봉보 제니들 하던 점벌 열위 리기워 뭐 대덕 손음기 봉보는 예조나 샘진 남기 뮤뮤버 장 샘직버는 겨로 람저로 주지 남정도 섬기 미지버때 남버만 봐요 섬기 미지바니도 르버샤오 되네 존던디지 세단다 람저란 더키지 더키지 소르도 존던디지 소르도 더키지 갑자도
Some translations are rather different.
Chirter neberji chirter driberji chirter simrab da zomber je terkichi sorwa dam chondon de ji zedan number ramjurlan derkichi kwartsar do ramjurn dolan jom tabala yang dober jiben da nyam da dok semchen tamchi bombolog mame bam nyanglen de bi yang sim nyanglen de dago terter don yon same ba yon sim nyanglen de jang semchen kan yang yon sim nyanglen 다바른 겨와 메도 냠다 셈 기브르샤오티 지시르제나 람주르 카테 샹주 선화 탐제던데 시장지구나요 대전 대장주 선화시 머샤테 건서 아르던데 신지나양 대장주 선화시 머샤위 시르 디지시르제나 람주르 샹주 선회 타발라양 더버 직바지 샤위 주대양 강메 비시로 람주르 냠다 셈 대장 서베 대비정 서바 말면자다 레 강올라나미 바양 도버도 샹 집담 검버 도버선 기비추 강양 요드 냠마마 데르키치가 자르와 당 존든데 라 제동담바람 저기 인더키치 역소도 존든데 대비정 서바 말면 자는 라나미 바양 도버도 저도 검버 도버선 기비추 대양 강양 맘치조 데르키치 소라당 존든데 기전담바 람저란 데르키치 메소 람저 대비정 서바 대비정 서바 말면 잘레 강 라나미 바양 도버 조버션 접담 검버 조버선 기비 초대양 강양 메도 람저 카르테 대비정 서베 강 검버 조버선 기비 초대 가지기 요버르 께르나 대비정 서바 말면 자드 기네 나라 잠제 키가 교도 마웅베티나 대비정 서바 접점 바양 도버 조버선 지 식게다 바지 샤르인 게로지 롱머톰 바지나 람저 더터 대비정 서바 강 라나미 바양 도버 조버션 접담 검버 조버선 기비 초대양 강양 메페 디슈르 대비정 서바 마르면 자티 나랍 잠지 기가 교도 마웅베티나 대비정 서바 접점 양 더버 조버선 지 식게다 바지 샤르인 게로지 롱톤도 대지시르 제나 람저 대비정 서바 지바테나 양 더버 대비정 서바니 지츠 라도 임비셔로 양 람저 강 라라지 근더컷 대비정 서바 접점 바양 더버 조버선 지 라나미 바양 더버 조버선 지 샹 점검버 조버선 지 소지 제르나테 로브르마바 야노 티치시르 제나 람저 대비정 서바 대비정 서베 강 라나미 바양 더버 샹 접점 검버 조버선 지베선 지 슈테양 강 메비셔로 람저 대비정 서베 추강 검버 조버선 지바감 담바텔라 뎀바양 메 즘바양 메도 대베나 대비정 서베 추탐지 상계기 추지 송소 람저 추탐지 집샤와 때나 추탐지의 메바인데 디나 추탐지 장 상계기 추지 샤오 이체파就是
All phenomena.
一切法这叫做是一切法
So
诸法
no
一切法的意思是什么呢？没有一切
no phenomena. All dharmas are not dharmas at all. Then that is called all dharmas. You got it?
不懂是吧？
No?
那就说明开悟了。
Okay, that means you've already got enlightened.
我刚才不是说了吗？要注意不然呢
As I mentioned earlier, that be careful.
是吧？
Watch out, you may get enlightened.
这等会呢，就是个米理当单向理清不的介绍，人哦，才当当把咱们就是就说了，中等的这种什么。结为米理当单向理不去，有送把这种设备理忙起边送的地那样理当单向理清不去学。中等的几个字了，咱们就是对人哦，对人的上求生活更，得个什么那么用什么样来打我一些呢？上求生活是没效果的，其实是那咱们就是上求生活是下为就这样。有年呐，有的年妈妈，咱们就是就说了，中等的，但是马上说中等的几个字了，咱们就是对面呢。这种设备就他们真的是真的没办法，中没办法，刚才没办法，我一说，咱们就是，咱们就是，咱们就是像就像我刚才跟这个记得个。像过把那么直播机在那这样对象的就不是，没晓得就是些那咱们就是像过把那么机下吧对呢，过把没把对象设备送把对象那对呢，像过把那么机下我咱们就是像就像我刚才跟这个的，就是咱们都没把，就是咱们都没把过机。木把对呢，对象设备这准备用都不是做上机，像就生化全部就较多，咱们就是就咱的什么对象设备啦，写一篇我们咱们就是就说了，中等的了对象设备写一篇我中等的就怪在了，咱们就是都咱的就咱的什么对象设备啦，写一篇我嘛，咱们就是说了中等的了对象设备啦，写一篇我中等的就怪在了，咱们就是。더 저냠도 세면 대정서 발라 시럽지 겸가 냠맘마 람저지 소로와 정던데 데데트라럭데 대정서 발라 시럽지 겸가고 정던데 기가 자라 람저른도 저냠도 세 대정 서발아 추지 전가 냠맘 람저지 소로 아 정던데 데들라데 대정 서발아 추지 냠가 정던데 집가서 람저는도 저냠도 셈 대정 서발아 산지 냠가 냠 람저지 소라 정던데 데들라데 대정 서발아 산지 냠가 정던데 집가서 람저는도 냠도 셈 셈년데 생각고 longo 심하니 이건고 longo 심하니 데코나 저에 데코나 저에 데다 감시마 데니지 지텐지 감서 저나 지텐지 감데다 망와 연 람저지 소라 정던데 데들라데 지텐지 감데다 망와서 정던데 집가서 람저는 지텐지 감데다나 셈친 찌니지 요바데다 거산바타다 셈지 ngarvi nga ngi rapto shi so te ji ji na ram jur sem ji jin ji sha wa te na jin me par te jin sha be song bi shi de di na sem ji jin ji sha wa te ji ji na ram jur de bi sem ji ma mu so ma won bi sem ji ma mu ba na mu se me da ta ter shong sem ji mu se me da.
So the Buddha told Shubudi, saying that I know all the sentient beings' mind stream, as many as the sands in the Ganges River. Why? Because there is really no mind. The past thoughts are intangible, the present mind is intangible, and future minds are intangible. I think in such a way we can understand it too, isn't it? Because it's intangible, it's unattainable. All sentient beings, the past mind has already ceased, the future mind has not come yet, and the present mind is illusory. So through such a way, by observing the mind, such as the ways that is stated in the 300 verses of Madhyamika, then you'll be able to know that there's really no mind to be attained. And in such a way, I think we can understand all the beings in the 3 times. And their mind are intangible, and their mind in the 3 times are intangible, and the suffering that comes in the mind are also intangible. The past, the present, and the future mind and suffering cannot be attained, cannot be obtained. So through the way of analyzing, such as observing that our mind that is happening now, right now is 8:49, and at this time, can you see your mind at this moment? No, it's already passed, because the moment you look at it, it's already gone. So this is quite important to read this stanza. The previous masters, the great masters, they said that the past has already ceased but not ceased, and the future has not risen. This is stated by Master Fudashi, who was actually a lay practitioner. At the time, the emperor asked a master, saying that, could you please give me the teaching of Diamond Sutra? And the master said, in fact, I know someone who teaches Diamond Sutra much better than I do. And he recommended this person whose name is Fudashi, who was a lay practitioner. And at the time, Fudashi was fishing, and the emperor asked Fudashi to give the teaching of Diamond Sutra to the emperor, and Fudashi said that I don't need any Dharma throne to sit on, but I only need a block of wood that is then used usually in the Zen Buddhism. And then at that time he started singing, just as Halponsu Rinpoche used to sing the Vajra song spontaneously and gush out those Vajra songs. So Fudashi right away, just like that, then started singing the song of the Diamond Sutra. And the emperor felt really out of the place, saying that, who is this person who just sang a song and left? And then the Zen master said, well, you don't know him. This person actually is the manifestation of Lord Maitreya. So his song means that, in fact, what is ceased is not ceased. It means that there's no ceasing and no birth. And through such a way, you'll be able to understand your mind. And I think this is part of the reason why the Diamond Sutra has such great blessings, because it has so much pointing out instructions on the mind. In the Vajrayana, it talks about the pointing out instruction, and according to Zen Buddhism, it is said the koan, the koan and question and answers, or posing the questions rather. And this is really for the kind of people who have received Pith instructions, and for the ones who don't really have Pith instructions, they probably don't understand it. If you only think that mind resides in your body, then the corpse has body too. How come the corpse doesn't have mind? When I give teachings in universities, I met lots of university students. They really eager to receive Pith instructions, but I cannot give them because, as you know, Vajrayana teachings requires have prerequisites, including empowerments and so on. And then I chose to give them teachings on Diamond Sutra. So I heard some feedbacks. A university student from abroad who once told me that I have never received this kind of teaching ever before, and this is such very rare and profound teachings. So I think for people who have faith, who have such kind of trust, and who have auspicious connection, once they hear this kind of teaching that the past, the present, and the future mind cannot be obtained, they will gain some personal insights and personal experience of it. In fact, many people relied on this verse to attain enlightenment.
Ketam Ramjur ji sora Jordan de Mangla so they Shaba Mangla so Jordan de Jibka Zara Ramjur, de division de Rigi Mokanda, Jitele Sunum ji Pombo Mount of Kieto, Yan Ramjur, Katip Sunum ji Pombo Kirna, Sunum ji Pombo, de division Shabe Mosung, Ramjur, the Chiniam the same. Zigirke Yonsen Rebe, Division Shabe, Rapt of Tower of Chef Nyamam, Ramjur Sora, Jordan de Ten Malaso, then Malaso, Zigirke Yonsen Rebe, Division Shaba, Tower of Mugido Lasso, Tejila de Jenam Jordan de Zigirke Yonsen Reba Divana, Yonsen Reba Mamchi, Division Shabe Somber Lat Te, Tina Zigirke Yonsen Reba Gio, Wo, Jordan de Gaf Sarapa, Ramjur the Chinyam to send them some bosoms of Division Shaba. Tower of Sha Nyamam, Ramjur Surva, Jordan de Tina Malaso, Sun Bosoms of Division Shaba, Tower of Mergiva Lasso, Tijira de Jena Dena Shabe, Sun Bosoms of Ba, Gang Somba Tenam, Sun Bosoms of Ba, Mamchi, the Shabe Somber Latter Te Tina, Sun Bosoms of Ba. Zip Jogo, Jordan de Jika Zara, Ramjur the Janyam, the same Division Shabe. The Nyam the Nye Churtondo Ji so Nyamna, Ramjur, Tester, Mafta, Division Shabe, Gang Tambi Chute, and Gang Mepi Shir, Ramjur Sijik, Division Shabe Chutando, Zerna Ramjur, Mepala Lobra, Ngala Kra, Kurver and Guru, Tijina Ramjur, Chutamba Jishava, Tena, Chutumba Tamba, Jishava, Mubri Kirvi Chute, Gang Mepi Shiro, Tina, John de Gitsetamba Ramjur. Dirkji Sordo, Jondan de Mao, Tina Semjan Kantang Tavi Chu, Shapan the Tuni, Mumber Yichibri Kiram, Jon Artam, Chi, Laksam, Jondan de Gipgatsara, Ramjur, Tina, Semjan Yang Mayan, Semjan Yang Mayan, Semjan Nebayan, Mayan Bati, Chijina, Ramjur, Semjan Namji Shavana, Devian Shabe, Deda, Semjan Meprak Sombi, Shirate, Devena, Semjan Jisha, War, Ramjur, the Chunyam, the same. Division Shabe Kanglana Mebayan, the Burshan, the Mumber, Zober San, Gibi Chute, Yotnam Yamama, Zedan Damba, Ramjur Sorva, Jordan de, Division Shabe, Kanglana Mebayan, the Burshan, the Zober, San Gibi Chute, Mamchis of Jordan de Gikatsara, Ramjur, Division, the Tela Chuchonzikan, Mamushan, Medo, Tina Lana Mebayan, the Burshan, Shanchu Shawa, Young Ramjur, Chute, and Yambra Shate, de de la même ba nyamba kan ya me ba ne tina la me ba yang do bor chang chib shang chibo ji sha go la me ba yang do bor zo ba shang chib de yang kan do la me ba kan sem chen me ba chuk me ba kan zog me ba nyamba de ge wi chu tam je nyam ngom zo bor yang sang ge so ram jer ge wi chu nam ge wi chu nam ji sha de de chu me ba ni de yang de jang shig be song de tina ge wi chu nam ji sha go yang ram jer ji ri gi wo mo kan la ji ge tong sum ji tong je mo ji ten ji kam na ri jer bo ro 다가 제니도 요바테 잠지름 보치스나 든지 봉보 랍도 디데 짐바베 근거 시르비 바로도 심반도 타나 측집이 측습자박 지 점 종네 잔다라 양다 버타나 람저 수님기 봉본달라 양 수님기 봉보 nga마텔 게 차리양 네버 만조베 위 와르도 양 만소도 람저도 진년도 삼도 대정석베 데르거도 네 셈친 남아 조르로 지공 공소 냠나 람저 데르타 못다고 데지 지나 데데르타 못다고 데지 지나 람저 데비정 서베 강 고르 셈친 강야 메비 셔데 람저 카데 데비정 서베 셈친 강라야 라지도 결나데 데비정 서베 더든 점바다 셈친 점바다 쪽든 점바다 강속든 점바는 게로 람저 더든 점바지 시야와는 점바메 파데비정 서베 점바 메바데비정 서베 송 송바 송나 데는 시바 소수케오 남기 송 람저 시바 소수케오 남 남너 데 케오 메바니트 데정 서베 송데 디나 시바 소수케오 남지샤오 람저르 쩨냠다 셈 암산 바좀 조바 데정 서바다 버샤가 람저 기 소랍 좀던데 데는 말럭 좀 점바좀 조바 데정 서바다 버면 게발럭 소 좀던데 기과자라 람저 데베나 테르타 산 바좀 조베 데정 서바다 버면 마샤테 람저 카템 산 바좀 조베 데정 서바다 버 게르난 콜로 게르 게르와요 데정 서버는 게르데 데베남 산 바좀 조베 데정 서바다 버면 마샤고 데네 좀던데 기자단 바람저 드르크 집과자도 좀던데 기저터탄 비 송베 돈남 자르버 게르남 산 바좀 조베요 데정 서바다 버면 마디오 디나 데정 서 디네 데네 좀던데 기츠즈 자판도 가르자도 강덕가라스 통어 강덕가라 자지바 로빌람데 지바 이티오테 당감음 알다테리나
And over here it says, those who see me in form or seek me through sound are on a mistaken path. They do not see the Tathagata. In fact, this verse according to Xuanzang's version, as well as Yijing's translation, I think Yijing's translation is very similar to the Kumarjiva's translation mostly, and especially in this verse, except that on a mistaken path, where it says it is on a mistaken action, and some wordings are a bit different. And according to Xuanzang's version, it is a little bit difficult to understand in terms of its wording, but the later part of the translation is rather a little bit different. The emperor at the time, when he was conversing with Xuanzang and asking him about the different translations between Kumarjiva's translation and Xuanzang's translation, Xuanzang answered saying that in fact the Kumarjiva's root-based translation is a little different than the one that I am translating. Therefore, the translation is a little different, and I have one more verse than the Kumarjiva's translation. So the emperor then requested Xuanzang to translate a new version of Dharma Sutra. Therefore, Xuanzang, based on two kinds of root text, and made two translations, except that unfortunately now one of the translations has lost. And Xuanzang's version is very similar to the Tibetan version. And when Xuanzang was telling the emperor And he stated that, in fact, it is not that the translator has made a mistake. It is rather that the translation texts that they based on are very different. For example, there are two types. The translation comes from the kingdom of Magadha, and the Kumarjiva's translation comes from the root text. And there's another root text that comes from the kingdom of Shravasti. So there are different root texts that are the base of the additions. And in the Tibetan version, in fact, the Lotsawa, or the translator, is unknown, is not recorded. I heard that it is recorded in the context at the beginning of the content page, but maybe there is, but I have to look into it. Anyway, what I really want to address is that there are different versions. Some has more verses and some has less verses, and it is not really the fault of the translator. Rather, it is because of the base texts that are used by the different translators. So just as how different secretaries would compose different kinds of texts, therefore there are different versions. Just as the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it was then written down by different panditas, and there are different panditas who comes from Kashmir, from the middle part of India, and there are people who then written down 700 verses, and some people written down over 1,000 verses. And do you remember the exact verses? 800? Exact number of verses? I think the one that we study, in fact, it was the one that has 1,000 verses, isn't it? And when people asked Shantideva, saying that which one should we use, which version should we use, then Shantideva said that you should use the one that has 1,000 verses. So there are different versions. And if you don't really compare the different versions, then it's okay. Maybe because of the aspiration made by Kumarjiva, I think this Kumarjiva's version, is more popular in China. But it is the most condensed as well, the shortest one, really. And maybe it is because the Chinese really like the short ones, such as how the Chinese people really like the short Heart Sutra. But we cannot say that if it's short, then it is incomplete or not perfect. We cannot say that. In fact, it is quite important to remember that all these great Losavas, the great translators, they have a great attainment and understanding, and their translations, it carries the power, and whatever versions makes you feel the most connected, then you can practice and uphold such versions. In the Tibetan version, in fact, there is another verse that's understand this one, where it says that one should see the Buddha as the nature of the Dharma, which is the Dharmakaya of the realized one, the nature of Dharma being unknowable by ordinary mind. Ordinary people cannot comprehend it. So this is the translation translated by Master Xuanzang's Vajrapada Prajnaparamita Sutra. According to Bodhi Ruchi, I think in his translated version of the Chinese version, maybe it also has this verse as well. I didn't really get time to compare to that one. So what it says is that, in fact, the Tathagata is also as the nature of the Dharma, and that Dharmakaya of the realized one cannot be known by the ordinary mind. That is usually using conceptual mind or using words or descriptions. It is not like that at all. In fact, it is the Dharmakaya that is unspeakable and uncomprehended, cannot be comprehended by the ordinary people. So the Tathagata over here refers to the Dharmakaya, the nature of the Dharma. And this verse is included in many different versions other than Kumar Jiva's version.
람 주른도 냠도 셈 찬 보숨 소베 대비장 시작바 잡좀 바양도 버조버 샹집도 몸버조버 상 계속 냠도 전나 람줄 규지 때트르타वर 맵샤데 람줄은 찬 보숨 소베 대비장 시작바 잡좀 바양도 버조버 샹집도 몸버조버 상 디바 메도 상 디바 메도 람줄은도 냠도 샹집 상회 탁바라 양 탁버 지바르남기 추강 라라지 अर्नंबर शिकबागामा छापर तगबागो न्यामदन जन रामजर ते तरतावर मशरते शांचु संखुई तगबाला yang तगबर शिकबा नामगी छु कांग yang नंबर शिकबागम छापर तगबा मेदो yang रामजर रिगदिव मो कांजी जिगतेंजी kamgang golong गुशिमा नि तग रंबो चे नबदंजी रब्त कांवर शिएदे जिम्बा शांचु संखवा कंग छुजन नामजन द दगमे चा के मे पर जोबा थोबना तेनि जितेनिले सोनमजी छुपोंबो चांगमंद 호담에 바 니도 양 람저르 샹저 산회 소놈지 봉보 용수 종으로 멀자고 세당 담바 람저르 기소라 전든 존든데 샹저 산회 소놈지 봉보 용수 종으로 멀지 발라서 존든데 집갑사라 람저르 용수 종 모드 게 로버 먹종테 용수 종으로 샤고 양 람저르 강 라라지그 ndrkत devjang shagba jittam shundam jansam jigsam narvaram zato ji zerna jang ju narva shundam jansam jigsam narvaram zat 以前我那个没有韩文当中没有翻藏文的时候
Before I made the translation of the translation of from Chinese to Tibetan. In fact, sometimes I didn't really understand how to translate it, and now I'm studying it from the translations. An old Kempo once, when he gave us teachings, and he would get really happy about a certain words and certain teachings, and he would say that, please wait, I just found something very important, just wait. And then we would sit out there and wait for a long period of time. So even during the raining time, we would sit outside, and it was really cold. At that time, we didn't really have any classrooms or any rooms at all, and we didn't really dare to go, and we would wait for him, who then stays inside the room, and we were sitting in the yard. So sometimes when I read the oral transmissions, I am thinking, making mental notes, I should remember this.
상계지 샤고 양 람저 리기원 리기오모 강라라지기 동섬지 동지문지 텐지 감시 드르지니 요바테다 ndortarte khwernar der charabji chojende shimr shene ramjurda chnyamda sem der charabji chogde mangwa yin nyamam ramjurji sora chondende te terter lagde der charabji chogde mangwa lagzo teji lade jena chondende der charabji chogo shigbramchi verjerna chondende der charabji chogo ka marsur vi flat go teji lade jena chondende der charabji chogde Gang Songba Te the Tsog the Mamchi Be, Devjang Shagba Namji Songbi Latago, Dinar the Traraji, Tsogji, Yogo, Devjang Shagbi, Tonsumji, Tonji, Tingi, Kamji, Java Gang Songba Ten, Kam Mamchi Be, Devjang Shagbi Song, de Dinar Tonsumji, Tonjimbo, Jitengi, Kamji, Yogo, de Jihla de Jenab Jondan de Garte, Jitengi Kam, Dom Chiber, Gernati, Rurun Zumber Kiri, Latago, Devjang Shagbi, Rurun Zumba Songba Ten, Zumba Mamchi Ba, Devjang Shagbi Songbi Latago, Dinar Rurun Zumba Yogo, Jondan de Gipka, Jondan Ramjur, Rurun Zumbandana, Tarni de Chute Jut me by Yin Na, de Ne Shiba Susu Kyo Namji Zungo, Ramjur Kanlala Zikan, Derkut, Devjan Sherbe, Dr. Tower Sombadan, Devjan Sherbe, Semchin der Tavadan, Chok der Tavadan, Kanzak der Tavak Sonzo, Zizerna Ten, Tabarmava Yen, Ramjur Yusura, Jondan de Ten, Malakso, Dever Shabaten, Malakso, Tichilat Zinab, Jondan de Devjan Sherbe, Dr. Tower Somba Ten. Tawa Mamchi ba Devjan Shabir Sombi Lata Wotina, Dr. Tawa Jibshavan, Jondan de Jibkasaro, Ramjur, Dola Janju Sanwe, Tabala Yang Jibe, Dola Chu Tamchin, Shibir Shavra, Tavarasha, Mubrasha, Chinis, Chusun de Shibala, Maneber Shibir Shaw. Ninga, 我们这个金刚经啊，就是金刚经的话呢，就按照这个
In fact, according to Master Huinen's commentary, he said that if we could practice by abiding in the status of understanding of emptiness and practice the Diamond Sutra and reading and upholding the Diamond Sutra, this is the most supreme way of practicing it. But even if you can't abide in such an insight of emptiness, even if you read and uphold the Diamond Sutra with a distracted mind, in fact, it could also bring great merit. So, on one hand, the Diamond Sutra could dispel the maras, such as when the Indra and the Indra was about to begin the fight with the Asuras, Indra asked the Buddha what he should do in order to win the war, and then the Buddha taught him the mantra of the emptiness, and then at that time, by chanting it, it indeed dispelled all the maras and obstacles for Indra. So even if all the retinues and the maras come together to attack someone, and by chanting the mantra of Prajnaparamita mantra, it could then dispel different obstacles and different hardships. For people who encounter hardships, who encounter obstacles, then you should rely upon Prajnaparamita, because this is the best way to dispel obstacles and subdue maras. The Heart Sutra has this practice of dispelling obstacles, and that is exactly the reason, because of the Prajnaparamita, the wisdom. Not only it could dispel different obstacles, it could also prolong one's life, one's longevity. A story in the collection of the enlightenment or experience gained by upholding the Diamond Sutra, it says that a novice who got the prediction that he would die the next day, and he got really scared, and he started chanting very diligently the Diamond Sutra, and he started chanting he chanted for 6 years. Then the person who made the prediction was very surprised when he met the novice again after 6 years, and saying that, wow, what did you do? Because nowadays your karma is completely different than when I first saw you. And by knowing the reason that he prolonged his life by chanting the Diamond Sutra, the novice continued to chant it every day until he became an old monk, around 100 years old. Nowadays, many people would take a different kind of nutrition and nutritious supplements from Japan, from Germany, from Europe, and from many different countries. But I think Of course, on one hand, it would be very helpful to your physical body. It could contribute to the factor that you can maintain a healthy body. But if you don't have a healthy mind, doesn't matter how much nutritious supplement you take, you will then shorten your lifespan. So for people who want to prolong your lifespan, who want to have longevity, it is the best to then chant the Diamond Sutra. Therefore, when people ask me, what if I want to get longevity? What if I want to get wealthy? I would give them advice saying that just chant Diamond Sutra. In fact, I myself indeed feel this way. I spoke of this genuinely. The blessings that comes from it is quite immeasurable and inconceivable. And over here it is then talks about you should recite, remember, follows, and expound it to others. It talks about the listening, contemplation, and practice of it. A master told his disciples, saying that you should not only chant it mindlessly, you should in fact contemplate upon it as well. And then the disciple got enlightened by chanting this part. So this also could bring enlightenment, this verse. Therefore, the treasures are hidden in every place inside the Diamond Sutra. At the end, it says that all conditioned phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a shadow, like a dew or a flash of lightning. Thus we shall perceive them. This is a quite well-known verse. And according to Xuanzang's translation, where it says that like a star, hallucination, candle, magical illusion, dewdrop, a bubble, dream, a lightning, or a cloud, in fact, it has more metaphors than this one that is translated by Kumarjiva. And Xuanzang's version is more in sync with the Tibetan translation. During our daily life, we should use this kind of 6 kinds of metaphor, or contemplate upon 6 kinds of metaphor, or 9 kinds of metaphor. The previous one, previously, the Diamond Sutra talks about the wisdom of emptiness, and this part talks about the wisdom of post-meditation. In the resting in illusion, composed by Longchenpa, there are different metaphors, and there are different metaphors included in the Madhyamika teachings, the 400 verses of Madhyamika. Different texts included the dream-like or illusion-like kinds of metaphor to teach people how to practice in daily life. And over here, it has the 6 metaphors, and the Tibetan version, as well as Xuanzang's version, has 9 kinds of metaphors. So that's how we should view life. Originally, I really wanted to give the teaching of how to practice up on the Diamond Sutra, but today I don't really have much time. Previously, I've given the teaching of how to practice with the Heart Sutra, and the teaching and the practice on Diamond Sutra is rather very similar to it. And for those of you who are interested, you should look into it. The actual practice, the main practice of Diamond Sutra, I think it's quite important to build a sense of feeling towards the Diamond Sutra. You have to feel attraction towards the Diamond Sutra. How do you do that? You should first of all then feel and know about the merit of the Diamond Sutra. You should understand that this is the way to lead you to enlightenment, the only way to lead you to enlightenment. And you should continuously, repeatedly to contemplate in such a way. You should contemplate that this is the best sutra, this is the best kind of teaching, the best way that could lead me to enlightenment, so that it could build up your faith towards the Diamond Sutra. And then after building up this kind of feeling, you can use different ways that is taught in Madhyamika teachings up on how to analyze, how to observe, and how to come to definitive conclusion of emptiness. And in such a way, you'll be able to understand how it appears and manifests, have appearance in relative truth, but in its nature, in the ultimate truth, it is complete emptiness. It is emptiness with the appearance. And when you are in the previous part of the Diamond Sutra, it teaches about the meditative aspect, the ultimate aspect of the emptiness. And when you are in the post-meditation sessions, then you should contemplate with this kind of metaphors that everything appears without any ground. It is groundless manifestation, groundless appearance. It is just like a dream and illusion. Everything, all the people around you, all the phenomena around you, they're just appearance. The scientists would say that, in fact, everything is illusory. But they are only talking about it from the theoretical point of view. They don't have the actual practice. But once you have the actual practice, it is different. You should then use the teaching of emptiness, and then you will be able to come to the realization of a post-meditation, or the metaphors that is described over here. So the emptiness and the appearance that is dreamlike and illusion-like, if you could attain such kind of understanding, then I think you can say that you understand some part of the Diamond Sutra. It talks about how to tame your mind. It is tame your mind with emptiness, and in appearance it is dreamlike and illusion-like. Okay?
Zhizadang Chipin Jikten Yarang de Chongden de Gyosong Bala Mumbro Toto, Papa Sherif de Bardo Jimbado Jisho Baji Javi Ndor So. 강도 지와 담치 담도리 용단 던던 도브르스 지마도 주동 저저 저런 줄라랑 대양라만 담밤 입시장년 dom서 뭐 줄라슈브르 주동면 그냥뭐 돈도 전도 특비 점수 가는 좀 담비주로 잔돈 줄라 좀 lap전 잔도 쇼그림에 바이 담치샴 지선제 토브르 쇼 샹조선 조름 보지 마르기반의 지 제반년 밤에 바 공내 공던 베르 조스카마라브르 마르메 디마즈르아치
When I give the teaching of the Diamond Sutra, I taught you that if you cannot give the whole teaching of the Diamond Sutra, at least you should give the teaching of the last 4 verses. If you never had the chance of giving the teaching to others, at least you can sing it out so that you can then share this verse to others. So it would be wonderful if you can propagate, if you can pass down, disseminate the Diamond Sutra. But even if you cannot disseminate the entire sutra, at least you can give the teaching of the last 4 verses, because that talks about how every phenomena is like a dream and like illusion, and that could bring great merit as well. You yourself, the ones who practice in the Diamond Sutra, do not hold great grasping and do not have a great solidity. You should view everything like illusory and dreams, and do not say that I know that by theory, but I cannot truly practice it. I understand that it's difficult to do it right away, to view everything as illusory and dreamlike right away. But if you can slowly practice upon it, then it could definitely ease lots of problems in your life. This time, I know that lots of people are listening to this teaching, and I really hope that you could disseminate this teaching. I received this teaching from Khenpo Deba. Khenpo Deba, who gave me the teaching, and only to me. Khenpo Deba was then dozing off when he was giving me this oral transmission, and I offered him a coffee, and he never had coffee before. He said that it's so bitter, and I'm falling asleep by drinking this coffee. So people nowadays would say that you should not drink coffee in the PM, but my reason for drinking coffee in the afternoon is that you would sleep even better after drinking coffee. Anyhow, I myself remember all my great masters, and I have a great gratitude for the ones who give me such wonderful and profound teachings. And I'm passing down this teaching to you, and hope that you could disseminate and practice and uphold this teaching. In the modern era, in fact, a lot of people have mental health issues such as depression. Some professors said that. In fact, a professor of Chinese medicine, he said that I think people who have depression and anxiety should study Buddhism. And he noticed that lots of his patients would improve greatly once they practiced the Diamond Sutra. So in this era where mental illness increase greatly than ever before, I think Diamond Sutra and this teaching would be of great benefit to lots of sentient beings. So we should disseminate this. We should disseminate the Diamond Sutra in China, in mainland, and in all the places, especially for Chinese people who already had a great faith towards the Diamond Sutra. I know there are people who do not dare to make aspiration and make vows of practicing the Diamond Sutra because they don't want to create any mistakes by breaking the vow. But I myself think that it doesn't really create too much mistakes, because at least it would force you to chant as many times of the Diamond Sutra as possible. So I think this is quite valuable to practice it. And we'll stop here today.